welcome you all to this session on youth engagement and evaluation. I'm Barsha Pradhan, and I currently work as an evaluation specialist at the Evaluation Office in UNICEF headquarters. Um, as you would probably know, the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 places great emphasis on inclusive and participatory approaches, ensuring that young people's perspectives inform decision making. In the same vein, UN agencies are increasingly integrating youth engagement in evaluations and have committed to implementing youth in evaluation standards, emphasizing empowerment, capacity building, and meaningful engagement of youth. At UNICEF, we are committed to the Convention on the Child Rights, the CRC, in which Article 12 talks about having the right of children and young people to be heard. So we recognize young people not only as participants in development efforts, but as critical evaluators who help shape policies and programs for a better future. We recognize that young people voices bring fresh insights and critical lens to aspects that are often overlooked by evaluators like us. Um, More recently, UNICEF Evaluation Office engaged with groups of diverse young people from across the globe in two of its global evaluations. The first evaluation was on evaluation of UNICEF gender policy, and the second evaluation was the evaluation of the UNICEF strategic plan. So in this session, we will explore how youth-informed evaluation can elevate the quality of those evaluations across different sectors and improve evidence-based decision-making and drive meaningful progress towards the SDGs. We will examine strategies to deepen youth engagement within evaluation mechanisms, ensuring that their contributions shape policies that truly reflect the needs of the next generation. So let's begin. Um, Please feel free to post your questions on the Q&A that you can find on the top of the screen or on the right of your screen. So there is a Q&A button that you can use for posting your questions. You can also vote for the questions that other participants have posted and upvote those questions for us to prioritize when we go to the Q&A session in the end. So let me now begin by introducing our esteemed group of intergenerational panel members that we have here with their brief bios. First, Erica Mattellone. Erica is a highly experienced social scientist with over 20 years of experience in international development and humanitarian aid. She currently serves as the Senior Evaluation Specialist at UNICEF Evaluation Office. She is leading global evaluations and evidence synthesis to enhance institutional effectiveness at UNICEF. Next, we have Kyra Varieva. So Kyra is a recent graduate from Claremont McKenna College with a degree in International Relations and Economics. She was an intern at the UNICEF's Evaluation Office, where she supported the facilitation of those youth advisory groups for the evaluation of gender policy. This year, she will continue as Evaluation Officer in UNICEF Evaluation Office to engage in evaluative work. Next, we have Yanis Stamatanikolos. Yanis is a former member of UNICEF's Youth Advisory Group for the evaluation of the Global Gender Action Plan and Policy. He serves as the head of Europe at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth and is a European Climate Pact ambassador. His expertise is in youth engagement, climate policy, and responsible innovation. He holds a law degree from the University of Athens and is pursuing a master's in law and economics in energy markets. Last but not the least, we have Grace Aqua Gyandarko. Aqua, who served as a member of Youth Advisory Group for another evaluation, the one on UNICEF strategic plan. She presently leads adolescent development and youth participation efforts at UNICEF Ghana Country Office and is a member of Young UNICEF. She presently leads Grace has expanded youth engagement centers nationwide and champions youth involvement in global policy spaces like the COP. She coordinates UN-wide youth efforts in Ghana to drive collective impact. So I would now like to begin the panel discussion. We will have two rounds of questions to the panelists. The first question is for Aqua. What does meaningful youth engagement in evaluations look like from your perspective as a youth and a program officer? And to what extent did you feel that young people were meaningfully engaged in the global evaluation where you were a member of the youth advisory group? Over to you, Aqua.
All right, thank you so much, Barsha, and it's my pleasure to be on this panel. From both a youth and program officer perspective, I think that meaningful youth engagement goes far beyond consultation. It means creating space for young people to shape the agenda, co-create tools, analyze findings, and influence how the results are used as well. So it's really about recognizing young people not as beneficiaries or informants, but as partners with lived expertise. That is bringing fresh insights, critical questions, and grounded perspectives, especially on what works for the most marginalized people. In the evaluation of UNICEF's strategic plan, which is UNICEF's overall framework of action for children, I feel like young people were meaningfully engaged, and that was evident in several ways, including the following. First of all, there was the youth advisory group, which I was a part of, that was formed from the start, and it created a dedicated platform for youth voices. Also, the advisory group meetings were chaired by young people, which made the process more relatable and dynamic. And then also the evaluation team clearly explained how our inputs would inform the findings, conclusions, and recommendations as well. And most importantly, there was feedback. The team returned to show us how our insights had shaped the final report. Our contributions were explicitly reflected, including about two final recommendations that called for stronger youth engagement in future strategic planning and cross-sectoral programming. So that level of transparency ensured that our voices weren't just heard, they helped shape what comes next. Thanks and over.
Thank you, Aqua. Maybe you could emphasize a bit more about what the most impactful contributions you feel the young people made also during this evaluation?
Yes, sure. I think young people made several key contributions. We highlighted priorities for UNICEF, and that included climate change, which is a cross-cutting issue, and digital skills development, which is really central to youth skilling. We also emphasized the importance of digital literacy, especially for marginalized children in today's increasingly digital world. Another major contribution was challenging how youth engagement is often treated as a parallel or secondary process. We advocated for young people to be part of core decision-making spaces, not just consulted after the fact. A good example was highlighting the UNICEF office in Ghana's example, where a young representative from Young UNICEF regularly joins top level management meetings, that is the country management team meetings. And I think that kind of inclusion models what meaningful youth engagement should look like in practice. Thanks and over.
Thank you so much for highlighting those good practices in Ghana Country Office. I'll now ask another question to Yanis as to how you got involved in the evaluation process and what motivated you to participate.
So thank you for your question. My involvement in the evaluation began through my work, I think, with youth-focused initiatives connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. This was really important because I soon realized that without systematic evaluation, these efforts, the efforts that we do when we implement the Sustainable Development Goals, they lacked long-term impact and accountability. So the turning point was when I joined the UNICEF advisory group, especially focusing on the evaluation and focusing on evaluating the implementation of its gender policy and gender action plan. This was a rare opportunity to see how structured evaluation framework could amplify youth voices, because the challenge here was that we were not just to be heard, but to actually shape programs and policies. And I was especially motivated by the intersection of gender equity and the youth leadership, and how evidence-based evaluation could drive transformative journeys and change. So evaluation to me is more than a technical expertise. It is a tool for empowerment. It's how we make sure that resources are used equitably, that no group is left behind, which is the main motto, if I can tell it in this way, of the Sustainable Development Goals in general, and that lived experiences are captured and acted upon. So being part of that process as a young person, especially from Europe, made me feel both responsibility and a privilege. So that's why I now advocate for evaluation to be embedded in every step of youth-led initiative. And it's not just about tracking progress. It's about amplifying impact, learning from what works, and holding ourselves accountable to the vision of the SDGs.
Great. You just ended with a very good note about being accountable to the Sustainable Development Goals. So maybe you could also probably highlight a few perspectives about how you think young people can contribute meaningfully to the achievement of those SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals.
So, young people are not just future leaders. If I can tell it in a bit arrogant way, are leaders now. And our contribution to the SDGs comes in many forms, from grassroots activism and policy advocacy to social innovation and digital transformation, especially in an AI era. So if I can share a part of my journey in totally different institutions and also initiatives that I've got involved. For example, during studying in Athens and acting as youth advocate, I always draw to the intersection of technology, society, and public policy. So what changed the game for me was realizing that, for example, adoption of AI and other frontier technologies could either widen inequalities or become tools for inclusive development. That's an example. And this is the reason why we created a platform, the GenAI Summit, which was the largest summit for our region, communicating the achievement or the mitigation of inequality, the achievement of equality, of gender equity, or the mitigation of inequalities. One of the most important things, for example, I think that especially for young people, is my journey in SDSN Youth, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network of the United Nations. That I started as a volunteer, then as a deputy network coordinator for Greece, network coordinator, and now as a regional focal point for Europe, leading the efforts of this network in my continent and in 40 countries in general. So what we do there, I've helped, if I can tell it in a sentence, coordinate projects that align local youth initiatives with global SDGs framework. One recent example is a collaboration, for example, with universities to integrate green and digital skills into their curricula, essential for just transition and long-term SDG success. So if I could close this speech, it's that our role as youth is not to be passive beneficiaries of the SDGs. And this is because we are the accelerators of these goals.
Thank you so much for that insightful sharing of experience, Yanis. I think that was very helpful to know how you can contribute to the SDGs. So with that, I move to Kyra, who coordinated the Youth Advisory Group for the Global Gender Evaluation. What strategies did you use to ensure that the diverse voices of young people were meaningfully included in that evaluation? And what did you learn about youth leadership?
Thank you so much for your question, Barsha. And to really answer this question, I tried to think back to my experience last year when I was working as an intern and working again as one of the younger people in the office. And one thing that strikes me as important to highlight before going into that is organizations like UNICEF set the precedent and the standard for what we view as meaningful inclusion and the inclusion of these diverse voices. And when working with the Youth Advisory Group, I saw that, we started using these sort of platforms to integrate these voices and integrate these diverse perspectives within the system. But just having that as something we promote isn't enough. We had to find a way to not only give the youth the sort of seat at the table, but really start engaging with their actions, with their ideas. And one way that we did that was integrating them through these different evaluations. It first started off with the global evaluation of UNICEF's gender policy and the implementation of the gender action plans, where we got different perspectives. I had to get these one-on-one meetings with a lot of really influential, really incredibly hardworking people from across the world who had ideas that were worth being put more than just on these high chairs, but really engaging within these content works. And I soon also realized one way in which we can really get these voices out is simply advocating for ourselves. One thing that I think this generation does extremely well is the ability to speak up for ourselves and the ability to have that sort of agency within ourselves. And organizations like UNICEF, teams like the Institutional Effectiveness Office really helped, push that forward. And I was super grateful to have the support and the encouragement of a team that not only wanted my voice and wanted my opinions and wanted my dissent in a lot of ways when I would push back, when people, even within the youth advisory group, pushed back, they listened. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned from that experience is actually two things. One being the people who listen are the people that really can help you move forward and can help you put yourself in that position. And you have to leverage that. That is something that, again, comes back to that self motivation and that belief that people within this space actually do have the capabilities to do that. And we have to recognize that in ourselves and recognize that as a global audience. And that really pushes forward that agenda.
Lovely to hear your experience, Kaira, about coordinating this group, but also your work during UNICEF as an intern. So next, I will address my question to Erica. In your view, how can youth-led or youth-informed evaluations contribute to transformative change in programming at UNICEF?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barsha, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. I think, the oldest in the group, so it's really a privilege to be part of the conversation. And in answering your question, Barsha, I would like, just to go back maybe to the data. So, we know that over 1.8 billion people are currently age 10 to 24, and they represent a quarter of the global population. So, for us at UNICEF in the Evaluation Office, when we conduct a global strategic evaluation, it's really critical that, we bring young people as part of global strategic evaluation to inform the way forward for the organization. And then, as you rightly said, Article 12 of the Convention of the Rights of the Child that guides UNICEF work really points to the right of young people, adolescents, to express their views freely in matters that are affecting them. This is why I think, more and more we should bring young people in everything we do when it comes to evaluation, from youth informed evaluations to, I also hope in the future, youth-led evaluations. And to answer your question, I see 4 ways in which youth-led and youth-informed evaluation can help an organization like UNICEF moving forward. First, I will say also based on the experience of the global evaluation of the UNICEF strategic plan, that is this framework that guides UNICEF work, and also the global evaluation of the gender policy. Young people help us capture more authentic, relevant and credible data. For instance, we review with the youth advisory groups we created for these evaluations, all the tools we developed for data collection, and they really help us reviewing and improving the tools so that we can capture the data that matter the most for young people. Also, they help us in the formulation of the findings, the conclusion, the recommendations to improve the quality of the findings, making sure they also reflect the real needs and priorities of young people today. And I also hope that, being part of this process has also helped them promote more evaluative thinking in what they do, building, their skills in terms of analytical thinking, research. And overall, I think what we have created is really, a fantastic intergenerational partnership between young people and colleagues here in the Evaluation Office. And we came out all very much, energized on the involvement of young people and how this can help us generate more useful evaluations to inform the future of the organization.
Great. It seems like it has been a really meaningful exercise at the Evaluation Office in terms of engaging those young people from diverse background in those global evaluations. So for all the participants, the Q&A is still open, and if you have any questions based on what has been shared so far, please feel free to post it on Q&A. We will get back to you with the answers towards the end of this session. So I have one question for all the panelists now. And the question is like, how can we ensure that the voices of young people captured through the evaluation meaningfully influence action toward a more sustainable, inclusive, and peaceful future? Maybe we can start with Erica answering this question.
Thank you, Barsha. I mean, this is a very important question, and I want to start with a lot of humility and say that there is a lot we have learned through these global evaluations we have conducted with the contribution of young people. And for me, some of the lessons moving forward include, well, first of all, that, participation alone is not enough. In the process of, conducting an evaluation, but also in the recommendations that we put forward, we should create pathways for, young people to influence evaluation recommendations and also influence how the organization is going to move forward. So, for example, what I really like in the global evaluation of a strategic plan is that we have a very specific recommendation for the involvement of young people in the development, implementation, and rollout of the strategic plan. And somehow, we created through the evaluation an additional space for young people to engage. And then I think for me, another important lesson is that we need, really to make sure that participation is safe, ethical, and not, just tokenistic. So, for example, when in the global evaluation of the gender policy, we work with, young people in the country we visited, we pay a lot of attention to have informed consent and also in, putting in place a safeguarding mechanism to ensure that, they are protected and their participation in our evaluation is safe and won't put them at risk. Last, I think another lesson is that we should, build capacity for these evaluations. It's not about, just the evaluation report or the evaluation process. Along the way, we should create a mechanism to build a capacity of young people and equip them with evaluation and communication skills so that they can engage meaningfully and also take something, away from this experience that they can, apply to their studies or, future career. And also, I think it's important that we equip not, just young people, but also ourselves, our colleagues that, are part of this evaluation process so that they can also value and appreciate the contribution of young people. So definitely we should, integrate the voices of young people throughout across all stages of an evaluation.
Thank you so much, Erica, for that those words of wisdom, sharing your experiences. Maybe the same question can be answered by one other panel member. How about you, Kyra?
Sure. Thank you so much. And I think I completely second Erica with a lot of the points that she made. And I think one that I would like to stress on is the importance of the sort of multi-partner stakeholdership in this. I think that is a really important point that this agenda cannot rest solely in the hands of the youth, and it cannot rest solely in the hands of the people trying to get in. It is something that we have to work together for. And as I mentioned earlier, institutions like UNICEF and even teams like the institutional effectiveness team have to work together to do that. And I am so grateful and privileged to be in a position where we were able to, not only create positions where we had these voices of the youth coming in as, for one evaluation or one little moment in time, but actually sustain that and have a longer sort of understanding of how we can bring in these voices. I'm super grateful to be the evaluation officer for the next year rather than just being one summer intern that I was, again, very grateful to have. But it is that sort of sustained longevity that is going to bring about that change. And I truly believe that there is so much we have to offer. There is so much that people like me can put forward. And a lot of times, youth roles get pigeonholed into just working either on one team or one sort of specific thing. There is this sort of idea that, the youth are incredible with our communication, and like digital media and the digitization of that space is something that we really can leverage to our advantage, but there's so much more we can do with that. And if given the opportunity and given the platform to really affect those kind of changes, I think moving out of a space of just giving us a place and giving us action and the ability to make decisions and the decision making capabilities is something that I'm grateful to be in a position to do, but also motivated to continue doing for the generations to come.
It's really nice to see the motivation at such a high level, Kyra. So maybe I can ask the same question to Yanis now.
Yeah, of course. In my point of view, to ensure that youth voice is captured through evaluation lead to action, I think that we need to follow three things. First one, the institutional commitment. It's not enough to collect feedback. Institutions must, if I can tell it this way, embed youth insights into decision-making structures, not just reports. The second one, it's the capacity building. I mean, young people need the tools to evaluate the platforms to present findings in ways that decision makers respect and act on. And third, but last but not least, feedback loops. After youth voices are included in evaluations, we need to see how that input changed the outcome. That accountability loop builds trust and encourages deeper engagement. Because if we treat youth not as tokens in a consultation processes, but as co-creators of knowledge, we move from participation to transformation, and that's exactly the shift we need for a sustainable and peaceful future.
That was such a great point about having young people as the co-creators of knowledge, Yanis. Um, so, Aqua, maybe you can respond to this question as well.
Yes, thanks, Barsha. I think not so different from what colleagues have already shared, but just to re-echo some of them around the fact that young people's perspectives must influence decisions, whether that means redesigning programs to accommodate what young people have shared, or even shifting budgets. I mean, making provision for some of the things that young people are raising concerns around, or even prioritizing them in terms of policy making processes. And of course, just as Yanis had shared, keeping them involved in the loop. Let them know after beyond data collection, let young people be involved in other processes like validating the findings in the different presentations to various stakeholders, and even in terms of even co-creating, let's say, action plans, for example. And then we also need to invest in youth-led monitoring and learning so that young people at that community level are able to lead change as, I mean, we call them agents of change. So we need that support so that young people can take that lead and also hold systems accountable over time. So yeah, I think it's really about just not seeing young people as a part of the process, but as partners, because a more sustainable, inclusive, and peaceful future has to be shaped with us as young people and not just for us. Thanks, and over.
Indeed, it is, I think, very important to see young people not as a part of the process, but as the partners. I totally agree with you on that. So it's still open, so please post your questions while we have the time. Meanwhile, let us look at one video that we had created with our young people who formed the youth advisory group for the evaluation of the gender policy and the gender action plan. Let's hear what they have to say. I think I need to also
My name is Itasha Dante.
My name is Yanis Namatamipolos.
My name is Hani.
My name is Rada Trim.
My name is Pati, and I'm part of UNICEF Evaluation Office Youth Advisory Group for the evaluation of UNICEF gender policy and gender action plans.
The Youth Advisory Group is a cohort of young individuals from many diverse backgrounds,
Passionate about challenging gender inequalities and promoting positive and equitable behaviors in society.
This group played a crucial role in the evaluation of UNICEF gender policy and the implementation of gender action plans, providing youth-led insights and perspectives throughout the entirety of the evaluation.
I got involved with the Youth Advisory Group because I wanted to actively contribute to meaningful change by ensuring that young people's voices are heard.
I wanted to learn more about ways in which we can evaluate gender-based policies at an international scale.
Through my participation, I've deepened my understanding, learning how crucial youth involvement is in ensuring that these policies reflect the needs of younger generations.
Evaluations are important because they provide a basis for understanding of what works and what needs improvement.
They allow organizations like UNICEF to be better able to understand who they're currently serving and who they may not be able to reach.
It allows young people to have an input on things that impact them and how we can move forward with best practice solutions.
I would like to promote actions that prioritize gender equality and empower young women to take on the leadership roles.
Some actions that I would personally like to see are an increase in the representation of racialized young people, as well as young people from underserved communities to be present
We need youth voices because we bring fresh, diverse perspectives that can drive more innovative and inclusive solutions.
For every child, evaluate.
Great. I hope you enjoyed the video and also had some insights into the young people who we had engaged during this evaluation. So next, we are glad to take up all the questions that we have on the Q&A. And let me see, what do we have here? So Maria Camila Villar-Guel, she is asked, as Aqua said, participation is critical in decision-making process. I celebrate what she told about the new UNICEF strategic plan construction process. Nevertheless, I haven't seen clearly in the document where participation has been set to keep working on such an important topic for UNICEF for the next years. Could you please tell us how are we going to keep having participation in a strategical position for UNICEF worldwide? Erica, would you like to take up that question?
Of course, let me try to answer that to the extent I can. So very good point, Maria. And indeed, as part of the global evaluation of a strategic plan, we put forward a very clear recommendation in which we invited UNICEF to strengthen its transformative impact through the strategic plan by increasing stakeholder engagement in its design, scaling up of integrated programming approaches, also supporting change strategies and cross-cutting programs. And in particular, we emphasize the importance of building feedback loops, as Yanni said, and consultations with young people as part of the process. To my knowledge, those consultations took place in the development of the strategic plan, but also I would like to stress that it's not just about the global UNICEF strategic plan and its way forward. I think at every level of the organization, we should be working with young people. And for example, at the country level, when we develop a new country program document, also include young people as part of the process and have meaningful consultations throughout. There is also some guidance that I can post in the chat on that, and I would like really to encourage all my UNICEF colleagues here today in the meeting to champion the engagement of young people in everything we do, because we can also be agent of change and transform the way in which we work in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica, for addressing that question. Would anyone else also want to add to what Erica said from the panel members?
Yes, Barsha, maybe
yes, great.
if I could go ahead. Thanks a
Sure,
lot.
sure, please.
Yeah, I'm glad that Erica already clarified on the bit with the SP particularly. So maybe just around the part on how to keep youth participation in a strategic position globally within UNICEF. Just to re-echo some of the things that Erica mentioned or hit on, that is around institutionalization, the fact that we need to work with young people across all levels of our program, and we need to embed youth participation into the systems and structures of our organization, not as ad hoc or even one-off activities, but as a requirement in strategic planning, governance, and evaluation. And that means young people taking on formal roles in, say, steering committees, advisory groups, and oversight bodies at all levels of the organization. I mean, at the global, regional, and even at the country level. And then another thing that I think I need to add is also around capacity and resourcing, because young people cannot participate meaningfully in strategic processes without support. We must invest in building the capacity of both young people and UNICEF staff so that they can co-create solutions, because as we empower young people, it's also the older people that will create that room, right? So we need to also make sure that we are building their capacity to understand why it is necessary to engage with young people. And that could include, it could take different forms like, say, mentorship, or even helping young people gain access to information, and even fair compensation for their time and expertise. Because sometimes the young people that we engage are not necessarily UNICEF staff. Some of them are coming from our communities, and due to constraints like even finances, if they are traveling to our offices to support or contribute to a process, then as an organization, we should be willing to compensate them somehow for that time. And then, of course, there should be accountability and feedback loops. We should track whether youth participation is really making a difference, because it could be that we're engaging young people, but what is the difference? And are the insights that the youth are sharing, are they being used? Are the recommendations being implemented? And then are young people seeing results? And that is what difference I see for the SP evaluation, for example, where we contributed to the process, saw that the recommendations were so clear in the report, and that has also informed the development of the new one. So I think that we are doing well in that side. I will end it here. I'm talking too much.
Not at all. I think it was much clearer to have that additional inputs from your side, Aqua. So thank you so much for your response, in addition to what Erica said. So we have another question from Hiroaki Yagami, who says, "Thank you for a very interesting webinar. In the context where the people's views are more divided, how do you make sure that young evaluators and youth groups can better capture diverse perspectives of young people, including from those reluctant to participate social change movements and being more conservative, and those who do not have the ability to engage in youth decision-making spaces?" So over to you, panel members.
I can take that question. And I think it is a really important and well perspective based question, because it really highlights two things that caught my eye here. One being young evaluators and the inability to engage in these youth decision-making spaces. And I think one major setback in this is just, I guess, acknowledging how high the barriers to entry are to a lot of these jobs in these fields. And while, organizations like UNICEF and the United Nations have helped in trying to bridge these gaps and created these roles and tried to push forward things like internships and fellowships, the barriers to entries for these jobs for young evaluators still remain pretty high. And I think one of the things and one of the steps that is important to take is recognizing that despite maybe not having a certain level of experience or a certain level of expertise, there's a lot that the youth voice can contribute to that goes beyond just these traditional metrics. And while, of course, they're important, of course, they are sort of parameters to understand how people can best affect these sort of programs and implementations of these ideas and strategic plans, I think there is a need to acknowledge that the only way that we can really recognize these roles is to give them that platform. And to do that, we have to break those barriers. And I think that is something that institutions should be taking responsibility or should be easing that process to ensure that not only are youth able to have these positions, but are also well compensated for that, which I think is a really important discussion that needs to be highlighted in this matter. Thank you.
Yes, Aqua, please go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Barsha. And just to add on to what Kara already shared, I think yes, there are real instances where there are divided perspectives, and some are more conservative, and others who do not have ability to engage in these decision-making processes. But I think it's also really about what are the ways in which we engage with young people, because despite the differences in personality, we have to make sure we are flexible and adapting the ways of engagement with the specific groups of youth that we want to engage. For example, there are youth groups, there are communities of young people. So whilst one person might not want to like engage head on, they could route their voices through that structure of the youth community or youth group that they form a part of. And beside that too, there are other engagement tools or avenues for young people to participate. Like in UNICEF, we have the U Report tool, which comes to young people one-on-one. So you can share your ideas or opinions through that platform, where I mean, it's not public. It comes to you directly. You can share it, and then that data is also protected, right? Aside that, there are others like YOMA, which is a platform to engage with young people through advocacy and other avenues. So essentially, I think it's really about the ways in which we are able to engage young people, making sure that they are flexible, they are more tailored, and they're also adaptable to the needs of the different young people that we want to engage. Thanks, and over.
And if I can also come in, Barsha, I would like also to share some perspectives to complement what the other panelists said, and also to answer Ira's question. I think from an evaluation design perspective, there are definitely a number of things that we can do to ensure diversity of perspectives of youth inform participants in an evaluation. First of all, I think it would be important that we start with an inclusive design from the beginning. And one of the ways we could do that is, for example, to map out in your evaluation what are the different groups of young people in your context, so that we can better understand where they come from, and we can be intentional in ensuring their participation in an evaluation, and create a space for youth informed evaluation, where young people have the possibility to engage. Then to me comes also to the data collection, and the variety of data collection methods we have the capacity to put in place. So for example, I think it's always helpful to go beyond just online surveys or limited conversation in, for example, urban areas. And we should be intentional in really reaching out to the hardest to reach, to have one-on-one interviews, but also we could be creative and use participatory methods like photo voice, storytelling, and other techniques that allow young people to express themselves, and provide feedback to an evaluation process. And then, as I said before, overall, I think it's important that we really invest in creating a safe space for young people to participate, and also I would say a space of trust, because at times young people are reluctant to share their views if they fear judgment or possible exclusion. So creating trusted space, it's really important, and really helps bringing in different viewpoints and perspectives.
Thank you so much, Erica. Yanis, would you have anything to add to what the other members said?
No, thank you. Everything was insightful, so I don't think any add from my part it will add something to the conversation. But I definitely agree with all the panelists.
Great. So you can find a link to the meaningful consultations with young people that Erica has posted. Thank you so much, Erica, for posting this link. I hope this is useful for the participants. I do not see any more questions on the Q&A. So we can probably, yes, Erica.
Thanks. Yeah, if there are no more questions, I also wanted to take the opportunity to share another useful guidance note that UNICEF produced a few years ago on adolescent participation, not just in evaluation, but also in monitoring and data collection. I think it has a lot of useful tips and lesson we learn along the way in the organization on good practices for the inclusion of young people in everything we do. So I share that in the chat for you to have a look if you're interested. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. So given that there are no more questions, I think we can now move ahead and close this session with a commitment that let us embrace the collaboration and work together across the different generations, young people and not so young people together. Let us work towards a shared vision for a future where youth are empowered to be change makers. Let us engage with them meaningfully. Let us build their capacities. Let us equip young people and create a safe space, a space for trust. Include young people in all the stages of evaluations, including evaluating policies, strategies, and programs. So hopefully this session has been useful to get some insights into how we can do that in a practical manner. So finally, thank you to all the participants who joined the session today for being a part of this very vital discussion. Thank you, panel members, especially our young evaluators, Aqua, Yanis, and Kyra, for sharing your collective insights today. Thank you to Erica for championing youth engagement in evaluations. And thanks again to all the participants for your time and very much enthusiastic participation.